You know what nobody tells you about being a galactic ambassador? The sheer, mind-numbing boredom. I'm Ambassador Quill of the Hegemony Council, and after 2 centuries of diplomatic service, I thought I'd seen everything the universe had to offer. Corrupt trade deals, territorial disputes over worthless asteroids, and endless debates about bathroom facilities for species with unconventional anatomies. Today's schedule promised more of the same tedium. Minor planetary status reviews. Basically a bureaucratic parade where forgotten worlds crawled before the mighty Galactic Council, begging for scraps of recognition. I was already planning my afternoon nap when everything went sideways. It started with the most ridiculous entrance I'd witnessed in decades. The massive chamber doors didn't just open, they slammed against the walls with a sound like thunder, making 347 delegates jump simultaneously. The security sensors went haywire, alarms started chirping, and somewhere in the back, a Vorthan ambassador made a noise like a deflating balloon. Through this chaos walked a single human female, and I knew immediately that my boring day had just become either legendary or catastrophic. She was small, even by human standards, maybe 5 feet 6 inches tall, with shoulder-length brown hair that looked like she'd been through a solar storm. Her outfit was absolutely ridiculous. A faded blue jumpsuit that belonged in a museum, boots that had seen more action than a battle cruiser, and a leather jacket so worn it was practically transparent. But here's what made my compound eyes widen. She strutted into that chamber like she was returning home after a long vacation. The reaction was immediate and hilarious. The Nexari delegation's crystalline forms dimmed in confusion. The Corvan representatives stopped their eternal whispering. Even the Zephyrian birds, who never shut up about anything, fell completely silent. And this human? She looked around the chamber, smiled like she'd just heard the galaxy's best joke, and said the 5 words that changed everything. Sorry I'm late, traffic was murder. I blinked all 6 of my eyes. Had she just made a joke about interstellar travel delays? At the Galactic Council, during formal proceedings, she walked to the speaking podium with the casual confidence of someone who owned the place, which was impossible because humans had only achieved faster-than-light travel 12 years ago. They were barely considered a minor species, let alone one with any real political influence. Distinguished members of the Galactic Council, she began, her voice carrying across the vast chamber without amplification. My name is Penny Lane, and I represent the sovereign world of Terra Minor. The laughter started immediately. Councillor Threx, a massive crab-like creature from the Sigma Centauri system, actually started changing shell colors from amusement. Terra Minor? Threk's voice boomed through the chamber like an avalanche of gravel. I thought that worthless rock was nothing but space debris by now. More laughter erupted from the assembly. The Vorthan delegation made their equivalent of giggling, which sounded like deflating balloons. The Nexari chimed in with their crystal singing, which usually denoted amusement, but today felt more like mockery. Even the normally stoic Corvan Empire representatives allowed themselves what passed for smiles on their gas-mark-covered faces. Penny Lane just stood there, letting the laughter wash over her like she was enjoying a pleasant rain shower. When the noise finally died down, she adjusted an imaginary cuff on her jacket and said, Finished? Good. I'd hate to interrupt such intellectual discourse. The sarcasm hit like a slap across 17 different species' faces. The laughter stopped abruptly. I found myself leaning forward in my seat, my professional boredom replaced by genuine curiosity. Terra Minor was indeed considered galactic garbage. A tiny planet in an unremarkable system with no strategic value, no rare minerals, and a population that had never exceeded a few million humans. Most of us had forgotten it existed, yet here was one of its representatives, standing before the most powerful political body in known space, acting like she belonged here. Terra Minor, she continued, her voice taking on the tone of someone reading from a particularly dull shopping list. Requests immediate elevation to full member status in the Galactic Council with all rights, privileges, and voting powers thereof. The silence that followed was so complete I could hear the atmospheric recyclers humming. Then, predictably, the hall exploded into chaos. Preposterous! Shouted Ambassador Clix of the Hegemony Trade Federation, his gas sacks inflating with indignation. Terra Minor barely qualifies as a footnote in galactic records. The audacity, screeched High Counselor Yara of the Nexari Collective, her crystalline form flashing angry reds and oranges. They have contributed nothing to galactic civilization. What's next? Threx bellowed, his shell now a furious purple. Are we going to give voting rights to asteroid mining platforms? Through it all, Penny Lane stood at the podium with the patience of someone waiting for a particularly slow child to finish a tantrum. She examined her fingernails, she adjusted her hair, she even yawned once, which somehow managed to insult half the chamber. When the shouting finally subsided, she spoke again. Are you quite done? Because I have a schedule to keep, and frankly, your collective outrage is less impressive than a malfunctioning waste recycler. I couldn't help myself. I actually chuckled. This tiny human had just compared the Galactic Council to broken plumbing, and somehow made it sound like a compliment. High Counselor Draven, the Corvan Empire's chief representative and arguably the most feared being in the chamber, leaned forward in his throne. When Draven moved, smart beings paid attention. When he spoke, galaxies listened. Miss Lane. Draven's voice was like the whisper of vacuum between stars, cold and empty and infinitely dangerous. You come before this august body, representing a planet of... How many citizens exactly? Oh, that's easy, Penny replied with a smile that could have powered a small star. 1. The silence this time was different. Not shocked, not outraged, just confused. I felt my own mental processes hiccup. I'm sorry, Ambassador Clix said slowly, his gas sacks deflating slightly. Did you say 1? I did indeed. 1 citizen. Me. Population of Terra Minor, Penny Lane. Age 28, profession variable. Current mood slightly irritated by the smell in here. Do you people never clean your air filtration systems? The implications hit me like a freight hauler at light speed. If Terra Minor had a population of 1, that meant, where is everyone else? High Counselor Yara asked, her crystalline voice suddenly much smaller. Penny's smile never wavered, but something changed in her eyes. Something cold and final and utterly terrifying. Gone. Gone where? Threx demanded, though his shell had shifted to a nervous brown. Gone, gone. Dead, gone. Not coming back, gone. Would you like me to use smaller words? I know some of your species struggle with complex concepts. The temperature in the chamber seemed to drop several degrees. I activated my enhanced hearing and realized that several delegates had stopped breathing entirely. How? Draven's question was barely audible, but it carried the weight of inevitability. Well, Penny said, settling into her explanation like she was about to describe her morning breakfast routine. It started about 18 months ago when the Corvan Empire decided Terra Minor would make an excellent location for strip mining operations. Something about minimal population displacement and negligible environmental impact. Your words, not mine. I watched Draven's posture shift almost imperceptibly. For a being who'd spent centuries perfecting the art of intimidation, he suddenly looked very uncomfortable. The mining consortium arrived first, Penny continued, her voice still casual but gaining an edge that could cut through starship hull plating. 6 massive extraction platforms, 43 support vessels, and approximately 15,000 Corvan workers. They were very efficient. Had our primary cities evacuated in under 6 hours. Evacuated to where? Ambassador Clix asked, though I noticed his gas sacks had deflated completely. Oh, nowhere special. Just dumped in cargo holds and shipped off to processing centers throughout the Corvan Empire. You know, standard refugee relocation procedures. Nothing illegal, according to Galactic Council Regulation 447B regarding involuntary population redistribution for economic development. I knew Regulation 447B. I'd helped write it. It was designed to prevent exactly this kind of situation by requiring extensive documentation and oversight. But like most regulations, it had loopholes big enough to fly a battlecruiser through. The processing centers were quite efficient too, Penny went on, her tone remaining conversational despite the fact that she was describing what sounded like systematic genocide. Separated families by age and skill sets. assigned everyone to various labor camps throughout Corvan space. Estimated survival rate was projected at 63% over a 5-year period. Very reasonable numbers, really. The chamber had gone dead silent again. Even the atmospheric recyclers seemed to be holding their breath. Of course, Penny said, examining her fingernails again. That was before the containment breach incident at Processing Center Omega-7. Funny thing about containment breaches, they have a tendency to spread. All 7 processing centers experienced similar accidents within a 48-hour period. Very tragic. No survivors. High Counselor Draven's breathing apparatus made a sound I'd never heard before. Something between a wheeze and a death rattle. But here's the really interesting part, Penny continued, and now her smile had transformed into something that belonged on a predator. The mining operation continued for another 14 months, strip-mined 70% of Terra Minor's landmass, extracted approximately 4 billion tons of rare minerals, generated enormous profits for the Corvan Empire. She paused, letting that sink in. The only problem was, they missed one citizen during the initial evacuation. One very annoyed citizen who spent 18 months learning everything there was to know about Corvan mining operations, security protocols, and industrial accidents. The realization hit me like a photon torpedo to the brain. This wasn't a representative from Terra Minor. This was Terra Minor. The entire planet reduced to one person standing in a borrowed jumpsuit and a surplus jacket. "You," I said aloud, not meaning to speak but unable to stop myself. "You're the containment breach." Penny Lane turned to look at me directly, and I suddenly understood why apex predators throughout the galaxy had such distinctive smiles. "Ambassador Quill, isn't it? Hegemony Council, 3rd Sector Representative, specialist in interspecies law and treaty negotiations?" I nodded, not trusting my voice. "Excellent. Then you'll appreciate the legal elegance of my situation. According to Galactic Council law, any planet with a surviving native population has the right to petition for full membership, regardless of population size. Terra Minor, Population 1, hereby exercises that right." The legal implications exploded through my mind like a chain reaction. If Terra Minor gained full membership status, Penny Lane would have voting rights equal to any other world. More importantly, she would have access to Galactic Council legal resources and protection protocols. "This is absurd," Threx bellowed, his shell now cycling through angry colors so fast it was giving me a headache. "You cannot seriously expect us to grant full membership to a population of 1, Lily." "Why not?" Penny asked innocently. "The Nexari Collective has 17 members, and you gave them full status. The Vorthan delegation represents a total population of 300,000. Terra Minor may be small, but we're very committed to civic participation." "You said we," Ambassador Clix pointed out suspiciously. "Force of habit. When you're the entire government, military, and civilian population of a planet, pronouns get complicated." High Counselor Draven finally found his voice again. "Miss Lane, even assuming your petition has legal merit, what exactly do you hope to accomplish? Revenge against the Corvan Empire?" Penny's laugh was bright and cheerful and absolutely terrifying. "Revenge? Oh, High Counselor, you misunderstand me completely. I'm not here for revenge." She reached into her jacket and pulled out a small device that looked suspiciously like a data storage unit. "I'm here for justice, and compensation, and maybe a little bit of revenge. But mostly justice." The device began projecting holographic displays around the chamber. Financial records, mining reports, population transfer documents, communication logs, video recordings of processing centers. "You see," Penny explained as images of systematic murder flickered around us, "when you have 18 months and unlimited access to Corvan computer networks, you accumulate quite a bit of evidence. Financial fraud, war crimes, violation of 73 different galactic treaties, bribery of council officials. Oh, and my personal favorite, tax evasion on a scale that would make the Vorthan Syndicate blush." The holographic evidence swirled around us like accusations made manifest. I watched Ambassador Click's gas sacks inflate and deflate rapidly. High Counselor Yara's crystalline form had gone completely dark. Even Threx had retreated into his shell. Now, Penny continued, her voice cutting through the horror surrounding us like a blade through silk, I could release all of this evidence to every news network in the galaxy. I could file criminal charges against approximately 400 individuals. I could initiate proceedings for war crimes tribunals that would last for decades. She paused, letting the threat hang in the recycled air. Or, she said with that predator's smile, you could simply grant Terra Minor full membership in the Galactic Council, along with all the rights and protections thereof, including retroactive legal immunity for any defensive actions taken by Terra Minor citizens against aggressive mining operations. The chamber erupted into chaos again, but this time it was different. This wasn't outrage or amusement. This was panic. I found myself admiring the elegant simplicity of her trap. Grant her membership, and she gained legal protection from any retaliation. Refuse, and she would release evidence that would topple governments and destroy entire economic systems. You're blackmailing the entire Galactic Council, I said, genuinely impressed despite myself. Blackmail is such an ugly word, Penny replied. I prefer aggressive negotiation tactics. Besides, you're the ones who wrote the laws. I'm just following them to their logical conclusion. High Counselor Draven stood slowly, his intimidation protocols obviously failing against this impossible human. And if we refuse, Penny's smile widened, then the galaxy learns exactly what kind of organization the Galactic Council really is, and Terra Minor Population 1 files the largest wrongful death lawsuit in galactic history. I'm thinking somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 trillion credits, plus punitive damages. The silence stretched like a taut wire ready to snap. 346 species held their collective breath, while one, human in a surplus jacket, redefined the balance of power in the galaxy. Finally, I spoke up. Because someone had to, and I was apparently the only one with functioning vocal cords. All in favor of granting Terra Minor full membership status in the Galactic Council. The vote was unanimous. The aftermath of that unanimous vote was unlike anything I'd witnessed in 2 centuries of diplomatic service. 346 delegates sat in stunned silence while Penny Lane, newly minted representative of Terra Minor, Population 1, calmly packed her holographic evidence back into that ridiculous leather jacket. Excellent, she said brightly, as if we just agreed to approve her lunch order instead of fundamentally reshaping galactic politics. I'll need my credentials processed by tomorrow morning. I have some amendments to propose regarding mining regulations. High Counselor Draven finally found his voice, though it sounded like he'd been gargling with asteroid dust. Ms. Lane, surely you understand that council membership involves certain responsibilities, committees, subcommittees, treaty negotiations. Oh, I'm looking forward to it, Penny replied with genuine enthusiasm. I've already reviewed the standing committee assignments. I'll be joining the Trade Regulation Committee, the Interspecies Rights Commission, and, she paused for dramatic effect, the Mining Safety Oversight Board. The color drained from every Corvin representative in the chamber. I noticed Ambassador Clix's gas sacks had stopped functioning entirely. Speaking of which, Penny continued, pulling out another device that made several security scanners start beeping nervously. I've prepared a preliminary report on industrial safety violations throughout Corvan mining operations. Just a small sample, 3,417 violations across 47 different planets. The device projected a constellation of red dots in the air above the assembly. Each dot represented a world where Corvan mining had left scars, both environmental and other kinds. Fascinating reading, really, Penny said, scrolling through the data with the casual air of someone reviewing restaurant reviews. Pattern consistency is remarkable. Arrive, evacuate, extract, eliminate witnesses. Very efficient. Though I have to say the documentation is terrible. You really should invest in better record keeping. Counselor Threx, who'd been unusually quiet since the vote, finally spoke up. How did you acquire classified Corvan industrial records? Penny's smile could have powered a small moon. Oh, that's easy. When someone spends 18 months systematically destroying your civilization, you develop certain skills. Computer infiltration, data mining, electronic warfare. You'd be amazed what you can learn when your entire species depends on it, she gestured. And the holographic display shifted to show shipping manifests, financial transfers, and communication logs. Did you know the Corvan Empire has been systematically underreporting their mineral extraction profits for the past 30 years? Tax evasion on an epic scale. We're talking trillions of credits in unpaid assessments. I watched High Counselor Draven's breathing apparatus make sounds I didn't recognize. Fear, probably, though Corvans weren't supposed to be capable of that emotion. But here's my favorite discovery, Penny went on, clearly enjoying herself. The Terra Minor operation wasn't their first genocide. 17 other worlds over the past 50 years. Same pattern, same methods, same convenient processing center accidents. The holographic display exploded into a web of connections, showing planet after planet, each one strip-mined and depopulated with clockwork precision. The death toll was staggering. Billions of beings wiped out for the sake of mineral extraction efficiency. 17 planets, I whispered, my diplomatic training failing me completely. 18, Penny corrected. Terra Minor makes 18. Though I suppose I'm technically a failed statistic, since they missed one. The chamber erupted into chaos again, but this time it wasn't mockery or confusion. This was horror mixed with political panic. 18 genocides meant 18 potential war crimes tribunals. It meant the collapse of the Corvan Empire's government. It meant economic shockwaves that could destabilize half the galaxy. Now, Penny said, raising her voice over the din, I could pursue justice through traditional legal channels, file charges, demand tribunals, seek compensation for the victims. But that would take decades, and frankly, I'm impatient. She paused, letting the implications sink in. So instead, I'm proposing a more elegant solution. The Corvan Empire will establish a victim compensation fund, starting with an initial deposit of 5 trillion credits. They will cease all mining operations on populated worlds immediately, and they will submit to regular inspections by the newly formed Interspecies Mining Safety Commission. Impossible! High Counselor Draven finally exploded, his composure cracking like a broken hull. The Empire cannot function under such restrictions. Then maybe the Empire shouldn't have committed genocide, Penny replied cheerfully. But hey, that's just one planet's opinion. Admittedly, it's a pretty strongly held opinion, considering I'm all that's left to hold it. Ambassador Clix, who'd been suspiciously quiet, finally spoke up. And if the Empire refuses these terms? Penny's expression didn't change, but something shifted in the air around her, something cold and final. Then I release everything. Every document, every recording, every piece of evidence. To every news network, every political opposition group, every victim's family member I can find. And I start filing individual murder charges against every person involved in the operations. She gestured again, and the holographic display showed personnel records. Thousands of them. Names, faces, positions, current locations. I know who ordered the Terra Minor operation. I know who designed the processing centers. I know who authorized the cover-ups. I know where they live, where they work, where they send their children to school. Her voice remained pleasant, conversational, but the words hit like hammer blows. The galaxy is smaller than people think when you have 18 months to map every connection. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the atmospheric recyclers seemed to be holding their breath. You're threatening the entire Corvan power structure, I said, not sure if I was impressed or terrified. Threatening? No, Ambassador Quill. I'm offering them a choice. Accept responsibility for their actions and make restitution, or face the consequences of a very angry, very patient, very well-informed survivor. High Counselor Draven stood slowly, his intimidation protocols clearly failing. Miss Lane, you cannot seriously expect the Empire to simply capitulate to the demands of a single individual. You're right, Penny agreed. I'm not a single individual anymore. I'm the democratically elected representative of Terra Minor, with full voting rights in the Galactic Council. My demands carry the weight of legitimate governmental authority. The legal implications hit me like a quantum torpedo. She wasn't just blackmailing the Corvan Empire. She was conducting official diplomatic negotiations. As the sovereign representative of a council-member world, her proposals had to be formally considered under galactic law. "This is insane," Councillor Threx muttered, his shell cycling through confused colors. "This is justice," Penny corrected. "Delayed, maybe, but justice nonetheless." She reached into her jacket one more time and pulled out a formal document, complete with official seals and signatures. "I've taken the liberty of drafting a preliminary peace treaty between Terra Minor and the Corvan Empire. Very reasonable terms, really. Compensation, oversight, and a promise to stop murdering entire populations for profit." She placed the document on the podium with a soft thud that somehow echoed through the entire chamber. "You have 48 hours to consider the proposal. After that, I start making phone calls to some very interested journalists." High Councillor Draven's breathing apparatus made that death rattle sound again. "And if we accept, then Terra Minor withdraws all criminal complaints, seals the evidence files, and we all move forward as civilized beings. I might even vote with you occasionally on non-genocide issues. And if we refuse?" Penny's smile returned, bright and cheerful and absolutely terrifying. "Then you find out exactly how creative an angry human can get when they have unlimited time, unlimited resources, and absolutely nothing left to lose." The vote on whether to consider Terra Minor's peace proposal was even more unanimous than the membership vote. As the session adjourned and delegates filed out in various states of shock and panic, I found myself approaching the podium where Penny Lane was calmly organizing her materials. "Miss Lane," I said, not entirely sure why I was starting this conversation. "Ambassador Quill, enjoying the diplomatic process so far? That was quite a performance. Though I have to ask, what happens now? You've made yourself the most powerful individual in the galaxy, but you're also the most hated." She looked up from her papers, and for the first time since she had entered the chamber, I saw something other than predatory confidence in her eyes. Something tired and sad and infinitely lonely. "What happens now is that I go back to my ship, eat a terrible dinner from a food synthesizer, and try to sleep without dreaming about the 3 billion people who aren't coming home," she said quietly. "Then tomorrow I wake up and continue representing their interests in the only way I can. Revenge, justice," she corrected. "Though I admit the distinction gets blurrier every day." She finished packing her materials and headed toward the exit, then paused and looked back. "You know what the funny thing is, Ambassador? All of this could have been avoided if someone, anyone, had just bothered to follow up on a simple mining permit application. If one person had asked, 'Hey, what happened to all those people?' none of this would have been necessary." She walked away, leaving me alone with that thought. The next morning, the Corvan Empire formally accepted Terra Minor's peace proposal. The Victim Compensation Fund was established within 6 hours. Mining operations on populated worlds ceased immediately, and Penny Lane, sole survivor and permanent representative of Terra Minor, took her seat on the Galactic Council as the most feared diplomat in known space. The galaxy learned a valuable lesson that day. Sometimes the smallest voice carries the biggest stick, and sometimes, when you destroy everything someone loves, you create something far more dangerous than you could have imagined. But the story didn't end there. 3 days after the Corvan Empire's capitulation, I received an encrypted message that made my carapace go cold. It was from Penny Lane, and it contained a single line of text. "Emergency council session requested. We have a problem." The emergency session convened at 800 hours, and the chamber buzzed with nervous energy. Word had spread throughout the diplomatic community that Terra Minor's representative had uncovered something new, something that required immediate attention. I watched delegates file in with expressions ranging from curiosity to outright dread. Penny entered exactly on time, but something was different. Gone was the casual confidence, replaced by something harder, more focused. She carried a new device, larger than her previous ones, and her usual predatory smile was nowhere to be seen. "Distinguished colleagues," she began without preamble. "In the past 72 hours, I've made a discovery that changes everything we thought we knew about the Corvan situation. The chamber fell silent. High Counselor Draven, who'd been avoiding direct eye contact since the vote, finally looked up from his notes. The genocide of 18 planets wasn't the end of Corvan mining expansion, Penny continued, her voice carrying a new edge of urgency. It was the beginning. Her device projected a three-dimensional map of the galaxy, with hundreds of systems highlighted in ominous red. I've been tracking Corvan fleet movements, resource allocation, and personnel assignments. They're not shutting down operations. They're accelerating them. Ambassador Click's gas sacks inflated with what I recognized as panic. That's impossible. The peace treaty prohibits mining operations on populated worlds, Penny interrupted. But it doesn't say anything about worlds that are about to become unpopulated. The implications hit the chamber like a shockwave. The holographic display zoomed in on specific systems, showing massive Corvan fleets moving toward inhabited planets with surgical precision. 43 worlds, Penny said, her voice cutting through the horrified murmurs. 43 planets with populations ranging from a few million to several billion, all scheduled for resource extraction within the next 6 months. Counselor Threx's shell had gone completely white. They're planning to murder 43 entire populations. Not murder, Penny corrected grimly. They've learned from the Terra Minor incident. No more processing centers, no more convenient accidents. This time, they're planning to use natural disasters. The display shifted to show technical specifications for weather manipulation satellites, seismic disruption devices, and atmospheric contamination systems. The scale of the planned destruction was breathtaking in its scope and horrifying in its efficiency. Stellar corona manipulation to create solar flares, Penny read from the data streams. Artificial meteor strikes, engineered plague vectors. They're going to make it look like the universe itself decided these worlds were uninhabitable. I found myself gripping my chair with all 4 hands. The Corvan Empire wasn't just committing genocide. They were planning to commit it on a scale that would reshape the galactic population map. How long do we have? High Counselor Yara asked, her crystalline form flickering between terrified blues and angry reds. The first operation begins in 18 days, Penny replied. Target, Harmony 7, population 4.7 billion. They're planning to trigger a volcanic supereruption that will make the planet uninhabitable within hours. The chamber erupted into chaos, but this time it was different. This wasn't political posturing or diplomatic outrage. This was genuine terror at the scope of what they were facing. We have to stop them, Ambassador Clix declared, his usual composure completely shattered. With what? Draven asked bitterly. The Corvan military is the largest fleet in known space. Even a combined council force would be outgunned 10-1. Then we don't fight them, Penny said quietly, and something in her tone made everyone stop talking. We outsmart them. She pulled up a new display showing Corvan command structures, supply lines, and communication networks. The beauty of a centralized empire is that everything flows through central command. Cut the head off the snake, and the body dies. You're talking about assassinating the Corvan leadership, I said, not sure if I was horrified or impressed. I'm talking about replacing them, Penny corrected. The Corvan Empire operates on strict, hierarchical lines. Orders flow down from the top without question. But what happens when the orders change? Her device began showing infiltration routes, communication protocols, and something that looked suspiciously like a complete override system for the Corvan military command structure. You want to hack their entire government, Threx said in disbelief. I want to become their government, Penny replied with that familiar, predatory smile finally returning. Just long enough to call off the genocide and restructure their entire civilization. The audacity of the plan was staggering. She wasn't just proposing to stop the Corvan Empire, she was proposing to conquer it from the inside, using nothing but superior programming skills and sheer determination. That's insane, Yara whispered. That's human, I corrected, finally understanding what made Penny Lane so terrifying. It wasn't her anger or her grief or even her thirst for justice. It was her complete inability to accept that any problem was too big to solve with sufficient creativity and determination. As for me, I requested a transfer to a nice, quiet sector, where the most dangerous thing I'd have to deal with was trade disputes over synthetic fabrics. Because after witnessing what one angry human could accomplish with a surplus jacket and a talent for bureaucratic warfare, I realized I was nowhere near prepared for whatever came next. And somehow, I suspected Penny Lane was just getting started.